Hi guys, this is Chantal from Gardening with Peaceful Living NH. Today we are going to talk about the must-do tasks to get your garden ready for spring. I know for a lot of you, probably you're well on your way into spring, you are planting, you have already cut back a lot of your perennials and all these things. But for us over here in the Northeast, we live in a cold climate. And as you can see, there's snow still all around me. And we have the possibility still of getting snow well into April. There was one year where it did snow even in May. So we're still practically in winter for us over here. So we have to be careful on how to take care of our gardens in the spring. There are some things that we can do and some things that we cannot do. And today I'm going to show you what are the things that you can do if you live in a cold climate as we do. Just for reference, we live in zone 5B 6A, New Hampshire. And I say zone 5B 6A because they have changed our zone, but I personally still garden as if it is in zone 5B, because in the previous years before they changed it, we got down into -20 Fahrenheit, and that is zone 5A. So I just don't want to risk it, and I still garden as if we are in zone 5B. The first task that we are going to talk about is cutting back your cool weather grasses. This right here is Gracilium maiden grass. This is a miscanthus grass, and it's a cool weather grass. So it typically grows in the early spring as soon as the weather begins to warm up. So right now we are still dipping down into below freezing, and this grass hasn't had the chance to start growing yet. But as soon as the temperatures start to go a little bit above freezing, this grass is going to be getting ready to wake up into spring. So you really want to cut it back early in the spring so that it's not going to block the light from the grass to grow into this lush grass that you want it to grow into. And also it's just not going to look nice if you leave this grass, this dead grass over here. And if you wait for too long to cut it, then you are going to be chopping off the heads off of your grasses, and those blades of grass are not going to grow back into the beautiful tips that they have. So you really want to do it super early in the spring before these grasses have the chance to grow. I have 3 grasses in this area over here, and we will be tackling these very soon. But I just want to say one thing about this grass. I love this grass. It's a super resilient grass, and as you can see, it's still standing up. We've had multiple loads of snow. It would get down a little bit from the weight of the snow, and then as soon as I knock the snow off of it, this grass stands back up. We had about 3 feet of snow, I would say, this year at least, if not more. And you can see this grass is still standing up and it's looking beautiful. So it's a wonderful winter interest. And I love to add grasses in the landscape just for that reason alone, as well as the great movement that they add into the summer landscape. The next thing that you're going to want to do is to cut back your perennials. And not all perennials. There are some perennials that you should not cut back. For example, lavender would be one of them. And the reason why you don't want to cut back your lavender if you live in a cold climate is because it might kill it. It needs that layer of protection around it to protect it from the cold weather, and leaving it until it just is about ready to start putting on that first flush of growth would be the right time to cut it back. Once the weather has warmed up, you are sure you're not going to dip into the low temperatures below 32 Fahrenheit, that would be the time to cut back your lavender. So in some of the previous years, I have been overzealous to cut back my lavender in the early spring, and I cut it back way too soon, and that unfortunately killed it. So now I make sure to wait to the last moment to cut back my lavender because I want to enjoy it throughout the summer, and lavender is just a beautiful, wonderful perennial. Another thing which I think already mentioned is your perennials. But one very important section of perennials that you are going to want to cut back are your cool weather perennials. Those are the ones that will put on their first flush in the spring, and they will bloom for you in the spring. You are going to cut these back super early in the spring because as soon as the weather warms up slightly, these are going to start growing and putting on blooms, and you don't want the dead branches to mix in with the beautiful foliage of these plants because it's not going to look beautiful. And if you are going to cut it back at that time, it's going to be a lot harder. So cutting it back while it's still cold at this time of the year is the perfect time, right before it starts to warm up. Since we are here, we might as well mention one thing that you shouldn't do at this point in the season while it's still cold outside and it's dipping below freezing, and that is cutting back your roses. Because over here in our area, we have a lot of winter dieback in our roses. And if you cut them back at this time of the year, you risk having that winter dieback well into the spring, because these canes, as you can see over here, we have a lot of brown right here from the cold weather. And if you cut it back, that's going to go down possibly all the way into the level of into the ground level. And that means your roses are going to have to put on all that growth from the bottom up. Just to give them a little bit of a good start, it's better to wait until they start putting on their buds. As soon as you start seeing those buds forming, that would be the time to cut back your roses. But for now, I like to wait on that. Another type of shrub that I like to wait before doing any cutback during this time of the season on are hydrangeas. Now, this is not a good example because this is an oak leaf hydrangea, and you typically do not want to prune an oak leaf hydrangea because it blooms on old wood. But if you have a hydrangea arborescens or hydrangea paniculata, those are hydrangeas that bloom on new wood, and they do benefit a lot from the cutback because it allows them to put on new growth and they bloom on new wood. So I like to wait until the weather warms up a little bit, until these shrubs start to put on their buds. This also makes it easier for me to see where the dead branches are and where the healthy branches are. I would like to move on to another area, but while we are here, we might as well talk about this beautiful tree over here. This is an evergreen spruce. I'm not exactly sure what type of spruce it is, but you can see it has a lot of dead branches on it. And now would be the perfect time to prune these trees because they are still dormant and the weather is not super cold where they are going to get damaged if you prune them. It's kind of cold, but it's not super cold for these evergreen trees, and they haven't started to wake up yet. So if you want to do any pruning on your evergreen trees, this would be the perfect time to do it. I might prune on them today if I have the time, but it still gets dark a little bit too early over here, and I'm not sure exactly how much we can do today. We will be doing some garden tasks today, and I will take you along with me as we do them. But for now, let's go, and I'm going to show you a must-do task in the early spring if you live in a cold climate. So you live in a cold climate, I heard. This is a Fantasia nectarine tree, and the nectarines on it are absolutely delicious. They are divine. I am so glad that I planted this tree over here, but this tree has to be pruned at this time of the season. If you wait any longer until this tree starts to put on its buds, it might be a little bit too late. You want to do it while the tree is dormant because it's going to take off a load off of the tree. You're going to open up the canopy of the tree, allow a lot more air and light to come in. That's going to reduce the pressure of insect and diseases. There are a lot of branches on these trees that should be cut back, and I'm going to take you along with me and I'll just show you quickly what we do to these kind of trees. Now in this case over here I have some Lamium, but it's still covered with snow, and Lamium is almost evergreen for us over here, but I have to wait until the snow melts before I can cut this back. This definitely is one of the plants that you want to cut back in the early spring before the weather warms up because it's going to start blooming very early in the spring. This is Purple Dragon Lamium. It's absolutely beautiful and it blooms all season long. I have one more garden task for you, and that is if you have any pots outdoors and you have something living in them, like I have over here these pots that have the green giant arborvitaes. I got them on sale in the late fall from Home Depot and it was a really good buy. And I put them over here up against the house so that they can get the radiation from the house, not bad radiation, heat radiation, and that's going to keep them alive throughout the winter. I also put these bubble wrap foil thingies around them to protect their roots so that they don't freeze. Now these are hardy in our zone, but because they are in a pot, they're more susceptible to freezing and dying from the winter temperatures. This is why I did what I did over here. But one of the things that you are going to want to do if you have plants in pots is to make sure to water them. I did that also in the winter so that these pots do not dry out and these plants don't die. You see these plants lying on the ground over here, and that is because we got a lot of wind over here, especially in the spring and in the fall throughout the changes of temperatures, because at this time of the year we start getting temperatures sometimes in the 50s, sometimes in the 20s, and maybe sometimes below that. And that creates a lot of wind. That constant shift of temperatures, extreme shifts of temperatures, I should say, causes a lot of wind to occur. And because of that, these are lying on the ground, and I just left them because I did not want them to break. So we are going to set them back up and we are going to water them today. And while these tasks might not be that many or that exciting, it's still something for us to do during the spring season while we are still surrounded with snow and gloomy days with the clouds over us. We can do something that we are able to enjoy outside, and it's good for us to go outside to smell the fresh air and to do something because we've been cooped up inside throughout the entire winter. So let's go ahead and get some of these garden tasks tackled. One of the very first things I'm going to do is to cut back these grasses. And I'm using these pruners over here. You can use shears if they are able to cut through some of these thick stems over here. You can also use a hedger, which would be perfect, but I don't have a hedger, so I'm going to use these pruners over here. My shears aren't strong enough to cut these grasses back, and you want to cut them back about 2 to 3 inches above ground. That would be the ideal height. And it's also really important to cut these back because sometimes you might have insects lying in there, and when you cut them back early this spring, it's going to allow you to see what's in there and you can bait for the insects. I use bonide for that and it works really well. Last year I had a huge infestation of snails in these grasses, and I put the bug and slug repellent, I think, or not repellent, but it's a product that basically when they eat it, it destroys their digestive system and they die. And it worked really well. I didn't see any snails after that. They were covering all of my grasses. So we're gonna do that first thing. So let's go ahead and cut all these grasses back. The next thing we are going to do is to prune this nectarine tree over here. But before you go ahead and prune your fruit tree, you need to know what type of wood your tree blooms on. And when it comes to nectarines, they bloom on 1-year-old wood, meaning the wood that was developed the prior year. So it took it the 4 full seasons to grow. That's the wood that you're going to see your fruits on. And this tree has put on a lot of growth last year. But one of the things that I'm looking for right now is to make sure to remove any weak branches, any dead branches, any diseased branches. Those are the main 3 things that you are going to look for in any tree, whether you know what it fruits on or what it doesn't fruit on. If you do that, you'll be pretty safe, even if you don't know what your tree fruits on. But before you do any type of pruning, you are going to disinfect your pruners. And there are many different ways you can disinfect your pruners. There's a helicopter passing by, so I'm gonna wait. But before you do any type of pruning, you are going to disinfect your pruners so that you don't spread disease into any of the other branches, in case if one of your branches are diseased, or in case if one other tree or shrub that you have pruned before has a disease. You don't want to risk spreading that. So there are many different ways to disinfect. One of them is creating a bleach solution. I don't know the exact percentage, but you basically mix bleach with water and you soak your pruners in it for a few seconds or maybe a minute to disinfect them. Another way is to spray them with alcohol or wipe it with alcohol. And I hold a little spritzer bottle with me wherever I go whenever I'm pruning, and I spray my pruning shears with it and I let them dry, and this way I know my pruners are disinfected and I'm able to move from tree to tree or from shrub to tree. If you notice that on your tree you have multiple branches that are infected, you're going to want to disinfect your pruners between every cut that you make. And I know that's tedious, but you really want to do that so that you don't spread the disease into the rest of your tree. So now with all this information out of the way, let's go ahead and get this tree pruned and ready for the spring. One more thing I forgot to talk about is crisscrossing branches, and you can see right here this branch is growing too close next to this branch, so this branch is going to have to go because this is a healthy branch. It's growing at a great angle. I'm going to keep it. It's providing a great form for this tree, but this branch over here is just interfering with the healthy branch that I want, so we are going to cut this branch off. And you'll want to do it right above the collar right there. You see that? Because this collar right here, it's going to allow the tree to heal a lot quicker. And if you cut into it, the healing process is going to take longer. And I probably need to get my loppers for the bigger branches and sharper my pruners. That's something I forgot to do. Also going to remove the stake that the tree came with because it doesn't need it anymore. But I can't take it out of the ground because the ground is still frozen. So we'll just leave it where it is. This tree is looking pretty good, I think, but before we move on to tackling the rest of our garden tasks, there is one very important thing that I forgot to talk about, so let's go ahead and talk about it, and that is spraying your fruit trees and any trees that you might have that are susceptible to blight and insect damage and such. So now is the perfect time to go ahead and apply your dormant spray on them, and I use horticultural dormant oil. It's organic, and I use it on all of my fruit trees. I also use it on my lilacs and anything that I know that is susceptible to fungal diseases and insect pressure, such as my roses over here. I like to baby my roses a lot, and they do get hit by all sorts of things, and this is why I spray the horticultural oil on them. And I actually sprayed on them throughout the growing season as well. Along with my fruit trees, make sure to follow the direction on your horticultural dormant oil or any type of spray that you choose to use. Let's go ahead and keep going. I got 3 fruit trees over here that I'm attempting to espalier. Yes, they are very advanced in age, and probably this is not the best thing to do to them. But I think that you can do whatever you want in your own garden and to whatever tree, because honestly, trees are very resilient and they will take to shape to whatever you design them to take to. At first, I was going to create a wall in this direction over here and a wall that way, because I have 1 tree over here, it's a pear tree, and 2 apple trees over here. They're planted pretty close together, and I thought, why not take advantage of this and create a wall over here and a wall on that section. Then I changed my mind throughout this winter because I noticed that we take this path over here all the time, and having a wall over here is not going to be very helpful. We have our huge compost pile in the back over there, and it would be really annoying to have to go around this whole area over here. Now I do, but whenever I send my kids, they typically take the shorter route. I really think that I do need to have some sort of opening over here. So the plan is to still keep this as a wall over here. And the reason why is because I have my vegetable garden on that side, and I don't want it to cast shade on my vegetable garden. So if I create it to be thin this way, it's not going to cast shade on the vegetable garden. While if it was going in this direction over here, the sun is going to be blocked by this tree from the vegetable garden. So on this section over here where these 2 apple trees are, we're going to create a wall going that way. So I'm going to be cutting these branches over here and leaving these branches right here, and I'm going to cut any branches that are heading in this direction. I know that's a lot of branches to cut, but I think the trees are going to be happier in the long run. Some of the old branches you have to cut anyways. As soon as the branches start to get the same thickness as the trunk, those have to go. Like this branch over here, for example, this is a perfect example of that. This branch is almost the thickness of the trunk. So this branch really has to go. Any branches that are low, I'm going to take down as well, because those are kind of a pain to mow around. They're not ideal. Like this one right here, for example, it's leaning down this way, so all the weight of the fruit, and this is going to be loaded with fruits, I can tell already from all the spurs that are on it, all the weight of the fruits is going to drag it down, and that's going to eventually cause this branch to break. So this branch has to go anyways. So this area gets super wet in the spring, and I'm going to bring you closer to something that I just noticed over here. And you can see there's like a little spring that's going on over here. Our well is right over there, and this whole area gets just super soaked. So ideally, these trees should have never been planted over here, but we were not the ones that planted them here. If it was my choice, I would not have put them here. Look at this, here's another spring. This is crazy. This chainsaw has actually been able to cut these branches. I didn't have to wait for my husband to come to cut these branches for me. I was able to cut about a 6-inch branch. One of them, I don't know if it was even a little bit wider than that, maybe 6 to 7 inches. I'll show it to you. But it does heat up when you are cutting these big branches, so you have to let it cool down between each branch. Now I can feel that it's still a little bit hot, so I'm not sure if it's gonna actually go through this branch, but I'm gonna try and show you. This is a lot thinner than the branches that I have cut. You can see, I don't know if you can see this one right here, much bigger. Let's see if this will do it. And knowing my luck, it's probably not gonna work because I'm filming it. Let's see, without injuring this right here. So I'm a little nervous because I don't want to damage the tree and I'm getting too close to it. There! That's pretty good. I'm going to take you and show you what kind of branches this chainsaw cut. I'm really impressed with it, but the thing is, you do have to wait between each cut that you make if it's a big cut, because it does get hot. So you have to make sure the engine cools down before you take it and cut the next branch. I'm so happy because now I don't have to wait to cut the branches like these, because I don't know how to use a big chainsaw, and I don't think my husband would let me use the big chainsaw. I don't even know if my body is capable of doing it, because I don't know how heavy it is. So let me take you around and show you. And here's one right here. You can see I'm gonna put my hand on it. There it is. I mean, I have big hands. It's about 6.5 inches, this one right here. I did cut that one right there, also about probably 4 to 5 inches, that one, and the ones that I just showed you over there. So now I'm going to clean up a little bit, and I'm going to show you how these trees look like. It looks like I butchered them, but don't worry, I have a plan. I just finished pruning the trees, and I'm going to turn you around to show you what they look like. Are you guys ready? Ta-da! It looks like I butchered them, but you have to trust the process, and I hope you guys can see the vision that I have in my mind. These right here, you can see they're starting to look more like a wall on that side over there, and this one you can see that pear tree right there, it's starting to look more like a wall this way. I did not cut that branch heading this way because I wanted to make sure that we're going to get some fruits off of this tree this year. I did cut a lot of the fruits off of it, and that's going to help with the fruit thinning actually. So it's going to make my job a lot easier later in the season when I have to thin the tree, because I'm not going to have to do that much thinning on it, and it's going to make the tree a lot healthier anyways. But I still have a lot of pruning to do on these trees, but I wanted to wait so that I can see which direction I'm going to make these branches go, because now is training time. I'm going to be putting down some T-posts as soon as I can put them into the ground, because our ground is still frozen right now. And I'm going to use some metal wiring, something that's sturdy and does not sag, and tie these branches to them. So I don't know exactly which branches I need to leave, which branches I need to take out, and I'm going to wait until I do that before I take out any of the other branches, because as you can see at the top right there, those branches are going way up high, and it's way higher than I would like them to go. So we're gonna wait until I'm able to put those posts in the ground, and then I will be training them. I will not be filming that process because honestly I don't know what I'm going to be doing, and it's probably going to take me a lot of time to figure out what branch to keep and what branch to take out, because it's a tedious process. But I will bring you along and show you what I have done after I'm done with the process. If you guys are interested, I'll leave a link for this handheld chainsaw down in the description box below. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but this is a couple days after I have filmed the first part of this video, and today it's so nice, it's so warm, it's 61 degrees, and I actually feel hot after working out here. It's so glorious and sunny. Now we will probably have more snow, but this is really nice, so I'm going to enjoy it. I just came inside and I was looking at my phone, and I noticed that I totally forgot about the green giant arborvitaes. We did not water those, so I'm coming out here with a watering can and my nice shoes and we're going to water these green giant arborvitaes. Thankfully this area over here does not have as much snow, so I'm going to be able to get to them without having to wear snowshoes. And I got my little watering can over here. I should have brought the bigger one, but this will do. And I make sure to water them all the way around. They have been on their side for quite a while, so I'm going to make sure to give them plenty of water so that they don't dry out. We're gonna do that 3 more times. I gotta go back inside and get more water. Okay, now we can say we're all done. I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!